My Printing Recollections by Benjamin Franklin. So it looks like, looks pretty old. Not sure what it's about. It looks cool, so I'm gonna read it. Chapter 1. From Boston to Philadelphia. My inclinations for the sea were by this time worn out, or I might have gratified them, but having a trade and supposing myself a pretty good workman, offered my services to the New York printer, old Mr. William Bradford, who had been the first printer in Pennsylvania, but removed from thence upon the quarrel of George Keith. He could give me no employment, having little to do and help enough already. But, says he, my son at Philadelphia has recently lost his principal hand, Aquila Rose, by death. If you go thither, I believe he may employ you. Philadelphia was 100 miles further. I set out, however, in a boat for Amboy, leaving my chest and things to follow me round by sea. In crossing the bay, we met with a squall that tore out our rotten sails to pieces, prevented our getting into the Kill, and drove us upon Long Island. In our way, a drunken Dutchman, who was a passenger too, fell overboard. When he was sinking, I reached through the water to his shock pate and drew him up so that we got him in again. His ducking sobered him a little, and he went to sleep, taking first out of his pocket a book which he desired I should dry for him. It proved to be my old favorite author, Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, in Dutch, finely printed on good paper, with copper cuts, a dress better than I had ever seen it wear in its own language. I have since found that it has been translated into most of the languages of Europe, and expect it has been more generally read than any other book except the Bible. Honest John was the first that I know of who mixed narration and dialogue, a method of writing very engaging to the reader, who in the most interesting parts finds himself as it were brought into company and present at the discourse. Defoe in his Crusoe, his Moll Flanders, Religious Courtship, Family Instructor, and other pieces has imitated it with success, and Richardson has done the same in his Pamela, etc. When we drew near the island, we found it was a place where there could be no landing, there being a great surf on the stony beach, so we dropped anchor and swung round towards the shore. Some people came down to the water, and edged and hollowed at us as we did to them, but the wind was so high and the surf so loud that we could not hear as to understand each other. There were canoes on the shore, and we made signs and hollowed that they would fetch us, but they either did not understand or thought it was impracticable. So they went away, and night coming on, we had no remedy but to wait till the wind should abate, and in the meantime the boatman and I concluded to sleep, if we could, and so we crowded into the scuttle with the Dutchman, who was still wet, and the spray, beating over the head of our boat, leaked through to us so that we were soon almost as wet as he. In this manner we lay all night, with very little rest, but the wind abating the next day, we made shift to reach Amboy before night, having been 30 hours on the water, without victuals, or any drink but a bottle of filthy rum, the water we sailed on being salt. In the evening I found myself very feverish, and went into bed, but having read somewhere that cold water drank plentifully was good for a fever, I followed the prescription, sweat plentifully most of the night. My fever left me, and in the morning, crossing to the ferry, I succeeded on my journey on foot, having 50 miles to Burlington, where I was told I should find boats that would carry me the rest of the way to Philadelphia. It rained very hard all the day. I was thoroughly soaked, and by noon a good deal tired, so I stopped at a poor inn where I stayed all night, grinning now to wish that I had never left home. I cut so miserable a figure too, that I found by the question asked me, I was suspected to be some runaway servant, and in danger of being taken upon that suspicion. However, I proceeded the next day and got in the evening to an inn within 8 or 10 miles of Burlington, kept by one Dr. Brown. He entered into conversation with me. I took some refreshment, and finding I had read a little, became very sociable and friendly. Our acquaintance continued as long as he lived. He had been, I imagine, an itinerant doctor, for there was no town in England or country in Europe of which he could not give a very particular account. He had some letters, and he was ingenuous, but much of an unbeliever. He wickedly undertook some years after to travesty the Bible in doggerel verse, as Cotton had done Virgil. By this means he set many of the facts in a very ridiculous light, and might have hurt weak minds if his work had been published, but it never was. At his house I lay that night, and the next morning reached Burlington, but had the mortification to find that the regular boats were gone a little before my coming, and no other expected to go before Tuesday, this being Saturday, wherefore I returned to an old woman in the town, of whom I had bought gingerbread to eat on the water, and asked her advice. She invited me to lodge at her house till a passage by water should offer, and being tired with my foot travelling, I accepted the invitation. She understood I was a printer, would have had me stay at the town and follow my business, being ignorant of the stock necessary to begin with. She was very hospitable, gave me a dinner of ox cheek, with great good will, accepting only a pot of ale in return, and I thought myself fixed till Tuesday should come. However, walking in the evening by the side of the river, a boat came by, which I found was going towards Philadelphia, with several people in her. They took me in, and as there was no wind, we rowed all the way, and about midnight we not have seen the city. Some of the company were confident we must have passed it, and would row no farther. The others knew not where we were, so we put towards the shore, got into a creek, landed near an old fence with the rails of which we made a fire, the night being cold in October, and there we remained till daylight. Then one of the company knew the place to be Cooper's Creek, a little above Philadelphia, which we saw as soon as we got out of the creek, and arrived there about 8 or 9 o'clock on the Saturday morning, and landed at the Market Street wharf. I have been the more particular in this description of my journey, and shall not be so of my first entry into that city, that you may in your mind compare such unlikely beginnings with the figure I have since made there. I was in my working dress, my best clothes, being to come by sea. I was dirty from my journey, my pockets were stuffed out with shirts and stockings, and I knew no soul nowhere to look for lodging. I was fatigued with travelling, rowing, and want of rest. I was very hungry, and my whole stock of cash consisted of a Dutch dollar and about a shilling in copper. The latter I gave the people of the boat for my passage, who at first refused it on account of my rowing, but I insisted on their taking it, a man being sometimes more generous when he has but a little money than when he has plenty, perhaps through fear of being thought to have but little. Then I walked up the street, gazing about, till near the market house I met a boy with bread. I had made many a meal on bread, and inquiring where he got it, I went immediately to the baker's. He directed me in Second Street, and asked for a biscuit, intending such as we had in Boston, but they, it seems, were not made in Philadelphia. Then I asked for a threepenny loaf, and was told they had none such. So, not considering or knowing the difference of money and the greater cheapness, nor the names of his bread, I had him give me 3 penny worth of any sort. He gave me, accordingly, 3 great puffy rolls. I was surprised at the quantity, but took it, and having no room in my pockets, walked off with a roll under each arm, and eating the other. Thus I went up Market Street as far as Fourth Street, passing by the door of Mr. Reed, my future wife's father. When she, standing at the door, saw me, and thought I made as I most certainly did, a most awkward, ridiculous appearance. Then I turned and went down Chestnut Street and part of Walnut Street, eating my roll all the way, and coming round found myself again in Market Street Wharf, near the boat I came into, which I went for a draught of the river water, and being filled with one of my rolls, gave the other two to a woman and her child that came down the river in the boat with us. Thus refreshed, I walked again up the street, which by this time had many clean-dressed people in it, who were all walking the same way. I joined them, and thereby was led into the great meeting-house of the Quakers near the market. I sat down among them, and after looking round a while and hearing nothing said, being very drowsy, through labor and want some of the preceding night, I fell asleep. I fell fast asleep, and continued so till the meeting broke up, when one was kind enough to rouse me. This was therefore the first house I was in, or slept in Philadelphia. While walking down toward the river and looking in the faces of people, I met a young Quaker man whose countenance I liked, and accosting him, I requested he would tell me where a stranger could get lodging. We were then near the sign of the Three Mariners. Here, says he, is one place that entertains strangers, but it is not a reputable house. If thee will walk with me, I'll show thee a better. Chapter 2. I will read Chapter 2 on my next video. Very interesting. Some of these words, like light, instead of Liked is Likd, well, apostrophe D. But yeah, stay tuned until the next chapter.